Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to New York City and welcome back to another walk and talk. I'm so sorry that I missed the episode last week. I had a horrible sinus infection. I got very sick. But today, it's actually relevant because the question of the day comes from my patrons. Yes, the patrons are now sponsoring these walk and talk episodes. So if you guys want to show me a question or show a topic that you guys want me to talk about, you can just go to my Patreon down in the description below, leave $1 and just write me a topic that you'd like for me to talk about. And the topic of today is, what do I do when I'm sick and traveling? Or what about laundry when I'm traveling? It's basically, the question is the logistics of traveling. We're going to talk all about that today on Walk and Talk. But first, let's roll the intro. Now that we're back, ladies and gentlemen, I'm feeling good, feeling healthier. I still have a runny nose, but man, I haven't been as sick as I was last week in a very long time. I basically had to explain, to give some context to what happened was I was basically filming every single day for like a month. All these travel guides out in the elements of New York. I started the episode in a snowstorm. I was out no matter if it was snowing or raining every single day, walking like 12 to 15 miles a day through New York City, just filming every day and like editing long hours at night. And I think my immune system was just at an all-time low, wasn't eating healthy, and it just was susceptible to an infection, and I got a sinus infection and it sucked. I haven't been that sick in a long time, but now that I'm feeling better, it's time to talk about it a little bit. Since New York City isn't my home, I don't live here technically. I mean, I do live here. I moved here temporarily, but it's not like I'm a resident of New York City. I don't have a New York City license. I don't have a New York City citizenship. It's like I'm not really a part of the city. I'm just temporarily living here, like a lot of places that I do go to in my life. I'm gonna actually walk this direction. I just got off the ferry because I was just filming a guide in Queens. I'm in my backyard here. Beautiful view of New York. But yeah, so I technically don't live here, and so it's actually pretty relevant as to what just happened to me now when I had the sinus infection. I couldn't go to a doctor. The way that my health insurance works is it's limited to the state of Florida, where I'm from, and usually that health insurance actually doesn't work anywhere else but Florida. And so when I'm traveling, for example, last year I was out of the United States for 11 and a half weeks, or 11 and a half months out of the 12 months of the year I was out of the United States. So I basically had to have health insurance, travel insurance that was covered abroad. And that's how my life is most of the time. So that means when I go to a doctor abroad, if it's a developed country like a Western world, like in the UK somewhere, or I mean, Mexico is pretty cheap. I'm trying to think of other examples. I mean, other parts of Europe that I've been to, or any countries really in the Commonwealth, like Canada, Australia, or whatever. If I get sick there, I can be really messed up financially, because it's very expensive to go see a doctor in places like that if you don't have health insurance, and if you're not a nation of that country. And so a lot of the times if I get sick, because I'm young, and knock on wood that I don't have anywhere to, I guess I can knock on a tree. Knocking on wood. Because I'm young, God bless, I haven't had any serious sicknesses yet. I say yet because it's inevitable that it'll happen in the future, but the worst that I've ever gotten sick was I got a really bad case of food poisoning in Cuba, and that transferred over into Mexico, and I was basically puking for 22 hours. You know, I had lost a lot of my fluids. I ended up going to a doctor the next morning in Mexico. I had to go to a clinic, which was an interesting experience in itself. And I had to basically figure out how to deal with being sick in another country, especially a country that doesn't have the standards of health that the United States has where I'm from. Now, that's not saying that Mexico doesn't have good health standards. It's just saying that it's not at the level of what the United States was and what the health insurance that I had could cover at the time. And so for me, it was a very interesting time just trying to figure that out, because going to a doctor, especially I had to have my friend Karina translating things for me, because everything was in Spanish and I don't speak perfect Spanish. And so basically not understanding what I have or what kind of sickness I have, and having to have a person is it's an interesting feeling. But I basically got diagnosed with like a food poisoning, and I don't even think I got any medicine. It was just like, eat healthier, drink a lot of water, and take care of yourself, and you'll get over it. Even during that trip when I had that food poisoning, I ended up going to the top of a volcano called Mount Popocatépetl in Mexico. If any of you guys are from Mexico City, you'll know where that is. And I ended up getting a horrible case of altitude sickness at the top of the volcano because my immune system was so malnourished and my body was so malnourished. and that was a very stupid idea. So don't go up a volcano high altitude when you have food poisoning or after having food poisoning. But that's probably the worst sickness that I remember having abroad. And as for doctors, I just kind of either avoid going to a doctor, or I try to get healthy in ways that I do. I think as the older I get, I'm still young, 22 years old, so I don't worry too much about getting sick. I'm generally pretty healthy. I work out pretty frequently, or I'm usually exercising or active, so I'm not too worried about my immune system and my health that much. Usually the worst sick that I get is just like a cold or something. So I try to just, eat healthier and take things that will boost my immune system. But should I walk back this way? I'm not too worried about getting very sick when I'm traveling, because I think at the end of the day, because I'm so young, it helps my situation right now. But I think in the future, I'll definitely start taking it more seriously. This time when I got very sick here in New York, I basically called my health insurance to see if I could go to visit a doctor here, and they're like, yeah, but it'll be like $200 or $300 if you want to do it, and then prescription medicine will be very expensive as well, and then a private doctor is like $150. So I was like, if it's just a cold, I'd rather not spend the money on that. And I ended up being okay, and my health insurance ended up providing a service that I could call a doctor and actually have just a conversation with a doctor over the phone, which was so cool. And so the doctor just basically told me that I had a sinus infection, and now I'm okay. So that's kind of what I guess I'll be doing if I'm here in New York and I get sick again, or abroad. I don't know. I really don't know. My life when it comes to visiting doctors and health insurance, the logistics of that side of traveling is not something I've really figured out yet. And we're sitting now because I'm still a little bit sick, so we're gonna try to get healthy by sitting down. I know this is a walk and talk, but it stopped being a walk and talk now. And as for laundry and other things in that department of those logistics of traveling, with laundry, I'll be honest, in the year that I was doing my travels around the world, or actually most of the time, being dirty and smelly doesn't bother me so much, and so I usually take a while to do my laundry, especially if it's not convenient and or expensive. In countries like Japan, it was actually kind of pricey to do your laundry, and so a lot of the times we just ended up stinking instead of actually doing our laundry, because it was either easier or cheaper to just not do our laundry. Places like the Philippines, where it was super cheap, and in Mexico to do laundry, you just do laundry at every opportunity. A lot of the times I'm staying with people, a lot of the times I'm staying with families. I try to get hosted for free, and so I end up doing laundry at their place if it's offered, if it's okay. But a lot of times when you're traveling, you just end up using a laundromat. Here in New York City, I'm obviously kind of traveling but also kind of living here, so I have a laundry machine, a washing machine, and a drying machine at my house, so I just clean it at my house. But when I'm traveling, yeah, it's usually you're holding a lot of stinky clothes on you, a lot of stinky socks and stuff, and you just carry them around everywhere you go. You try to stuff them in your backpack as far as they can go so they don't smell everything that you're doing, especially when you're like riding on a subway or a bus or something. You don't want to be in a public space and really be smelling bad. So a lot of times you'll just buy cologne or deodorant or something and spray it all over the dirty clothes to try to remedy the situation. And you just try to do laundry whenever you can. I will be honest, yeah, it wasn't something that I prioritized for a very long time, was being very clean and hygienic. And that's because some things have to be risked when you're traveling, if you're traveling on a budget. And I was comfortable with just that being kind of something I threw to the side and didn't take care of too frequently, because it wasn't that important to me. And I don't think it'll ever be super important to me. But as I get older, I'm definitely appreciating the experience of being able to be somewhat more hygienic and clean. I love that I'm living here in New York City. I still feel like I'm traveling, like I'm not home, and I have a bunch of clothes on me that I could always switch out. I like having dress clothes and clothes that look good, and I could continuously clean them. It's something that I took for granted when I was living somewhere as a kid and as a younger person, and something that I'm not taking for granted now. I'm really appreciating the fact that I can just clean my clothes anytime that I want. But moving on to that, let's talk more about logistics of traveling, things that you might not think about on the day-to-day when you're traveling, like, I don't know, ripping pants, shoelaces, buying new clothes, stuff like that. What you try to do when you're traveling is, or at least when you're backpacking or budget traveling, you try to budget things out and try to stay as cheap as possible a lot of times. And so things like buying new clothes, a big strategy has been for me is to ride my clothes out as far as they can go. So maximize the mileage on my clothing per se. So when I wear clothes, if I buy a new pair of clothes, I usually try to spend a little more than the baseline of cheapness. So I try not to buy clothes that are super budgety, that are not super cheap. I try to buy clothes that I think might last a little longer than the average pair of clothing, and then I ride them out for as long as it can possibly go. And that way I'm spending a little more upfront, but I don't find myself having to buy a new pair of pants every week. I can buy a new pair of pants maybe every like 6 months. And I just try to buy one of anything that I need. When it comes to my clothes, a lot of the times I'm wearing my own merchandise, and I wear that till the logo is completely done. And I've been doing that for the last 1.5 years. So as you can see, this hoodie is not in the best shape anymore, but I try to, with the shirts and hoodies and jackets, wear my own stuff. That way I'm promoting my own merchandise when I'm traveling. But when it comes to pants, it's about every 6 or so months I need to buy a new pair, because they end up ripping right through the middle in the same spot every single time. And as for shoes, I try my best to keep to one pair of shoes. I carry around a pair of sandals with me. In a place like New York City, I had to have, for the winter, a pair of boots. And so I had a pair of boots as well, but I ended up buying a pair of shoes like 3 months ago, and they ended up ripping on me. So I had to buy another pair of shoes this month, which I'm not really happy about, because it's a huge expense. Because I do like to invest a little more in my shoes, because the mileage that I do as a traveler, I'm always walking. I'm walking a lot. I mean, even in these walk and talk series, I walk so much. And so I need a nice pair of shoes. And I'm usually, this is not a sponsor, I'm usually always looking for a black pair of Nikes, just because they work well as working out shoes, staying active, hiking, and then also going out and doing stuff. So I like a nice black and white pair of Nikes. They always work for me. It's kind of like my standard for when I go for shoes. I actually need to be going this way, because this way is my home. But that's pretty much the logistics of traveling. I know that it's not the most riveting and interesting episode, but it's what you guys as patrons wanted. It's what you guys wanted to see. Gotta make sure that we're good on time, yeah. And yeah, if you guys want to leave more suggestions, go down my Patreon. It's in the description. It's on all my videos. You can give it as a little at $1, and then you can stop your subscription the next month if you want to. And you can leave me suggestions for new Walk and Talk episodes, and you guys will be prioritized, and I will talk about your episode. So thanks again, Rachel and Camille, for leaving your suggestions for today's Walk and Talk. I love you guys very much. I love you a long time. If you do want to support this channel, Patreon, buy some merchandise, whatever you guys want. We'll see you in the next one. I love you a long time, Clats. Goodbye.